Classes in session.
How is everybody doing? Welcome to Unlearn 16 Classes in Session, guys. Guys, this is it. Season 7, Part 2 of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer investigative journalism, pop culture analysis, led with two amazing guys. We've got Stu, we've got Stefan. Hi, boys.
Hello, hello.
Guys, are you ready for it to be over?
No.
What are we going to do on Sunday? Oh, have a life. Oh, right.
It's not praying.
Maybe I'll do laundry.
Laundry.
Laundry. Where Stefan leads me to filth every time I don't. I wear like a shirt.
Same two shirts
that week.
Same
Sometimes
two shirts.
That's gotta happen.
Always.
I put mine in and didn't press go. So here we are. It's just the way the Sunday works.
I'm wearing the best shirt.
Find out. What's that? Oh, you are too. I can't believe so. Very nice.
It was given to me. It's amazing.
I did find out today, and for everybody who's listening, if cranberries bounce, you're going to have to go see that on my TikTok. That will be up tomorrow. Today, I'm going to put up Stu and I go to see Halloween Ends.
I cannot wait to see that.
I took Joanna to
the scariest
the Front
theater
Street Rainbow Movie Theater with the seats in the basement.
Oh, in the basement.
I thought she was going to die.
Because there's no reception down there.
Yeah. Forget the reception. Nobody was there. We're in Toronto. It was vacant. Number 2, why down so many stairs? And number 3, nobody took our tickets. Stefan? Nobody.
Yeah.
Really?
I bought them online.
No one checked them.
Took them. But in retrospect, I'm wondering if nobody took them because they knew, they memorized there were 2 seats sold.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it used to be my favorite theater, I'm going to say, because the seats alone are worth it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but see, I live in the suburbs, so all the seats out here are like that, and I don't feel like I'm going to die going to the theater.
I live under a bridge, so that's a treat for me.
The TikTok. All right. Speaking of the end, this is it, guys. So we are in the home stretch of season 7. Where do you guys want to start? Where do we leave off last time?
So I just want to say that this is so. This show is so old that after Lies my parents told me, Willow gets a call from Fred and she goes over it. Is one of my favorite episodes of Angel Orpheus.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But Orpheus, the episode of Orpheus was delayed because of the start of the Iraq War. What?
But yeah. Wait. The second Iraqi War. Not Desert Storm, not the Persian Gulf War. We're talking the second. Okay, but it's post 9/11, right? That's the time we're in.
There's the protracted armed conflict in Iraq from 2003 to I think it was 2011 or 12.
Yeah, long time.
Just a cash 8-year war.
I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it.
No, but it's so funny that it's not funny the war, but it's funny how in my head it's not that long ago when it actually is a long, long, long time ago.
Well, it's 20 years.
If you told me that these episodes aired yesterday, I believe you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It just feels so new.
Well, that's kind of the beauty of the show, because I'm telling you right now, there's episodes of lots of shows that, outside of some CGI issues, there's episodes of lots of shows that don't hold up like that. When I watch it and I go, who dated? I don't feel that way often about Buffy. Do you know what I mean? I've been forced to watch Teen Wolf. Why can't they get their CGI game together? What's going on, guys?
I will say though.
Long time after Buffy, why do your wolves look like that? Stop
100%. I you know what? And I'll say that I still listen to the soundtrack of season 7, episode 22 of the final fight and the Slayers. Mm-hmm. It's two of the most powerful cinematic style soundtracks of a series of that time, and to me it is still such an epic episode when it comes to the special effects, even compared to now, cannon fodder, but then just everything was happening. It was amazing.
I just think also, I agree. I challenge anybody. There's lots of stuff that we can complain about at Buffy, but I challenge anybody to come up the series finale.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 episodes are, I don't know a better series finale. I just
It's
don't.
hard to find,
People are going to say,
genuinely.
Angel, you know what? You're jaded. Stop it.
No, no,
There
no.
is not. You just like the fact that they're supposed to be adults and everything's dark and gloomy. No, screw you. That's
Yeah,
not why I'm watching TV. There is
exactly.
nothing more powerful. In fact, I think the Buffy speech that we're going to talk about. The
Mm-hmm.
"Are you ready to be
Mm-hmm.
strong?" is perhaps that speech with the flashes to the women
Oh, iconic.
is
The
the little
baseball girl.
girl. Come on now, exactly, the little
Yep.
girl with her head down, shaking. She stands up there. She barely can hold her bat. She puts her head down. Buffy gives everybody the power. She tilts it up with that smile.
Yep.
There's no better scene. I challenge
100%.
everybody.
It's amazing. It's so powerful. It was so powerful.
Stuart's like swallowing hard because he wants to destroy
No,
the
no, no, no,
scene.
no. I think that scene out of the entire episode is perhaps the most powerful one in a what would be classified as a subpar episode. I
Oh,
think that I think the last 15 minutes of that episode were iconic. I think the lead up to that episode felt rushed.
well, yeah, I guess
Yes.
parts of it could have been rushed.
I'll say
But the
that, like,
speech,
The
the
speech is
speech is
great.
everything.
Literally, as soon as they enter the catacombs, amazing episode. When
But we
she
yeah,
can
gets up and she's like, "I want you to get out of
out of
my
my
face."
face.
I love it. Like
Double
amazing.
everything is
entendre.
epic.
But even that, like,
Like
there are
that,
others.
when that song starts, when that like soundtrack starts, it's
Oh,
incredible. But everything up until that soundtrack, it just feels like they are throwing thing like fish to the fans, being like, "Look, they're having a funny conversation at the end of the world." It just felt
okay.
like a rushed season.
You're
But
just talking about Faith right now, and
okay, come on.
like
Whoa.
Faith and
Robin.
Oh,
yeah,
right, I forgot about him.
Although another amazing moment in the episode is actually not this episode, is End of Days, where Buffy is sitting with Faith and Faith says, I see you, I've seen what you have, and I don't know, jealous.
yeah,
They finally have that moment where the two of them connect beyond just being slayers and being like
hmm
people. And it's more
hmm
about just like her accepting that I will always be your second fiddle. I will always be the other slayer,
hmm
but anything that's yours, anything that's supposed to be mine is yours, including the
but
friends and the
also
family and the heart.
acknowledging she always thought she was lonely. I was
Yes.
always alone. I was always whatever, and I was looking to you, thinking that's the life I want. Well, thus, all of the back and forth, even the body swap, which was, by the way, did we
Oh,
talk about that episode?
yes. It was amazing.
Enough detail. It was one of my favorites.
Roll the
Um,
clip.
roll the clip. Sorry. But the idea that when she's finally there, she now feels what solidarity, like that kind of alone
I've
feels
never
like
felt so alone. Yeah.
when you're the leader, when you're
Hmm.
making those choices, when you're surrounded by all these people that love you and admire you and
Yeah.
elevate you, and you've never felt so alone. I think if people
And
could understand that about everybody in this world, forget the supernatural for a second, like, holy crap, what an amazing tie we could
oh
possibly
yeah.
have with humanity, right?
And for Buffy to then to have this moment with her after everything, she is still they're still like walking on eggshells during Dirty Girls. They have that confrontation in Empty Places. Uh, Faith has to take charge of the Slayers, and then they finally in the Hellmouth, the two of them, Buffy stabbed, looks at Faith, hands her the scythe, no one else, and says, "Hold the line." And then
Yep,
Faith knows it's my responsibility now. And
yep.
it does dive a lot more into that in season 8. Faith has her own arc. They use her essentially as like a suicide squad for a little while, and then she ends up going with Angel. But like just that moment with her and Buffy, even at the end, just standing side by side, it was just
Yep.
it's to me it was almost a near perfect conclusion to that storyline between those two characters, 100%. And if
And let's be
anyone's
honest.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and
And
if
if
anyone's
anyone,
looking, it's Robert Duncan is the one who created the soundtrack for season 7. It's called "The Last Battle" and "The War Against Evil." Those are the two main parts. But there's also a beautiful scene with that they stole from "The Killer and Me," and they used it
Mhm.
with the Faith and sorry, I keep saying Faith,
Right.
the
Yeah,
Willow
yeah,
and Kennedy scene in the same episode
yeah.
where she's like, "Now you're my way." Beautiful, beautiful music to these scenes. Like it
Right.
absolutely transports you.
And we're not going to put down the like. Here's the deal too. I think there are people in this world that want some semblance of realism or some level of like such meaningful depth all the time, and I'm just not one of those girls. I'm just not one of those people that needs it. What I do need is the, you know, boring from another genre, the Iron Man, sorry, the Captain America picking up Thor's hammer. I need that
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
And that scene to me happened different times in Buffy where you cheer, where it's that scene where, I think it happened when Angel showed up as trivia, like
Yes.
as should he have shown up, should he not have? It was brilliant. And then for
Hmm.
Angel to then stand back and go, "Oh, you're so going to lose." But
Yeah.
he no longer has to help her. He no longer
Exactly.
has to protect her. He's like,
Yeah.
"I'm just going to stand back and watch her
I miss
decimate this
watching
guy."
this. Yep.
Right? I
Yep.
missed watching this. And then the conversation about the cookie dough, which I never can get out of my head. It's so asinine, but so enjoyable. I tell kids all the time, you're not done baking yet. They don't get the reference, but it's funny and it
Hmm.
makes sense. And those kind of ties, and I know Stu maybe is just like, oh my God, it was just so many, but those kind of ties, when I first watch it, but even when I watch it today, there's not many shows. I get chills.
Hmm.
Captain America, that scene, Captain America picking up that hammer, or the hammer going into his hand,
Yeah.
every day. I can watch that scene 300 times. The
Hmm.
same with Buffy, probably. I would say in those last two episodes, there's probably at least 5 solid scenes where you kind of want to go, yes,
Yes.
like that kind of feeling. And that's what a series finale is supposed to do.
There's
It
a
is.
handful. Yeah. There's a handful of scenes in any, like, for me it's obviously the chosen final battle. Like when Snow and Charming find each other, season 1 of Once, when the Sept is destroyed in Game of Thrones. Like, there are these like epic moments in TV shows that exactly that you want to get up and like cry or scream or cheer, and they're just so embedded in your memory. But I will say, to Stuart's point, there are some things in the episode that were too rushed. Like, as an example, when Angel shows up and he sees Buffy and they have that passionate kiss, and it's a hello. The first shows up as Buffy to taunt Spike, because the way
Right.
to get to Spike the closest is either be Drusilla or be Buffy. And I feel like if they had like even an extra episode, there could have been more of a disconnect between them, a fear, an envy, a jealousy, and then it would have led up to that whole holding hands, I love you, to be a little more powerful.
But
Just
I
for him to
think,
be like, can we skip it? Can you just lie in
no,
bed?
but I think that part was done.
Yeah.
That part of Spike, and that's his growth, and that's his story, and that's his arc, right? I think when, and it was also powerful. Spike's speech to Buffy, you're the one, you're this, you're that, like
Oh
it
God,
doesn't. I don't
such a good
love
scene.
you. I don't
Hmm.
love you because of what I'm going to get from you. I love you because of who you are. It's nothing about me.
Yeah.
That gives me chills right now.
Yeah.
That is what love is supposed to be, right? Love
Hmm.
isn't supposed to be uh, only given until it's reciprocated. Love is supposed to be selfish. Love is supposed to be everything they are.
Hmm.
That's what you're supposed to. So Spikes already feels that. I think he's already separated his ego from that reality. And so when he
Hmm.
sees Angel kissing Buffy, I think it's perfect that he doesn't, because we were expecting him to go off the rails, right? And what
Yeah.
does he do? Nothing. He goes, "Oh, I saw you saying hi to him with your tongue." And she's like,
Yeah.
"It wasn't like that." But he's already separated. He's like, "I'm already done with it. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. You have a trinket for me. Give it over."
Yeah. It's true.
To me, that's because it's his hero's arc, right? Like he's about to do something. Did you guys like that part?
The handing
As
of
Spike
the.
part? That
I
Spike got to do the cleanup? What do you guys think about that?
I loved it for what it ended up becoming.
In
I
Angel?
in Angel. I did love it for
Mm,
what it became in Angel. I was hoping that there would be more of a connection between Buffy and Angel after season 7, and not just like a cameo from Andrew. Um,
right.
but yeah, I mean, did the ending happen the way I was hoping? Yes and no. Like, I'm glad that I'm Willow goes beyond her fears and becomes a goddess. Everyone becomes a slayer that is intended on becoming. Spike gets his, but like in the best way. I, I
Mm-hmm.
I do also like it because if it wasn't for him, it would have been Angel, and that would have been a problem. Like that would have been
Mm-hmm.
like. But then, what a really interesting start to season 5 of Angel. Him being trapped in the amulet and essentially
Right.
Lindsay's puppet would have been
Right.
fascinating. But no, I liked it. Except for Anya, I would have swapped Sandra for Anya and called it a day.
Who wouldn't have? Yeah.
Yeah,
Stu, what do you think?
Um, I mean, like I like it for what it was. I really have a hard. I struggle with the Buffy Spike dynamic,
yeah.
and like this is coming from someone who used to love Spike. Spike
Mm-hmm.
season 2 was obsessed.
Right.
I think somewhere along the way, and there was character development 100%, but I think in season 7 they were really looking for something to redeem him after season 6,
Yeah.
and um, I think I have no idea what's happening. They tried to redeem him after season 6, and I think this storyline, at least to me, felt a little bit like patchwork, especially in some of the back scenes of how he came to be a vampire. I really enjoyed those episode that the episode, and kind of really enjoyed um, delving into his backstory and how he killed 2 slayers. Um,
Oh, I thought you were talking about lies my parents told me. You're talking
yeah,
about season 5.
I'm talking about season 7. Because
Oh,
they
okay.
go back for a second to talk about Nikki Wood.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like
yeah.
I enjoy
Really
those
interesting.
kind of like
Yeah.
background and like the background of
I
Spike.
agree.
I just feel like they did the character a bit of a disservice in season 6, and then we're doing a lot of they were trying to clean it up in season 7, and it
Yeah.
felt very much like they were like the pendulum swung way over here, and then suddenly like we pick up in season 7 and the pendulum is on the completely opposite side of the spectrum. So when he gets the amulet, I thought it was a convenient plot device. One,
Mm-hmm.
because the actor wanted to go on and play on Angel. They already had those negotiations and conversations, and now Buffy was ending. Um, and second of all, um, I think it was a really great way for him to end out the arc on Buffy. I just, again, and it's like the common thing for this season, I feel like it was a very rushed character arc.
Mm.
I wish it had
You,
been a little bit more where he wasn't so crazy for so long. It was a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more, because in Lies, my parents told me they learn about how the first is the trigger for the song and where the song comes from. Um, and that, like, Lies, my parents told me is episode 17, and then it's resolved by episode 22
mhm.
of the actual hero storyline. And I wish we had gone maybe like in episode 10 and had like
Yeah.
12 episodes of like really making it like a long,
Mhm.
because
I
Angel got 3 seasons. Angel got 3 seasons in Buffy to kind of like do this, and they gave
mm.
Spike 17 episodes.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you're 100% right because it just goes from him being crazy in the basement to crazy at Xander's to normal to killing to all of a sudden there's a trigger. It literally, you're right. It should have been just like in the basement. He should have been humming that tune to himself, and
Yeah,
then
exactly.
It
rather
could have
than
been
that, like
easier. Yeah.
a lot easier. They could have simplified that so much more, and then stretched out the first taunting him as Buffy, like in the house, like maybe confusing him to be like, "Are you Buffy or are you the first?" Because how would he know unless he touched her? Um,
Hmm.
I have a big
because
question.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, finish your thought because this is going to go off in another direction.
Oh, it was just that. It was just like they could have. I really did like the torture scenes, but it sound as horrible as it sounds, but like the manipulation scenes between Spike and the first and Spike
Oh
and the
yeah,
first being Buffy. Really interesting stuff. And they could have utilized the first so much in this season, but in previous seasons, like they should have. He should have been they should have been a taunting background character throughout the series. It should have been more than just one episode in season 2 or season 3, excuse me.
yes,
And
that's what
then
I
yeah,
Well,
wanted.
and that's a
The first to be
consistent
the
issue.
a
overarching villain.
stretching, yeah, yeah, like Supernatural. Sorry.
Here's my question. Do you think, and this is could be applied to the real world, do you think in order to have the only characters that can have extremities of greatness and I will save the world and I have the leadership and the talent and the bravery and all of those things. Do you think that same person has to have extremities to the opposite? Think about it. Think about all the characters in Buffy.
Mhm.
How bad Angel was and how good he could be.
Yeah.
How bad Spike was and how good he could be. Even Willow.
Yeah.
How powerful she can white hair goddess Willow and how bad she can be. The only character that doesn't do this is Buffy, really, unless you're going to count like season 6 kind of, but I don't even really count that because
Or
No.
she
season
doesn't
3 when she
have
stole a knife.
but you're right, but she's not as much of a swing, but I'm wondering because then I start thinking about predominantly men because that's who we write about. Their ability for good and nobility and greatness. Yet, this is why we shouldn't build statues. Their ability and their pull to do some horrible, horrible things, right? And that's true if you look at big figures in history that changed the world. They're not they're not all good. And I'm not saying a little bit bad. I'm not saying a little bit bad like they just did a couple. I mean lots of skeletons, lots of greatness, lots of skeletons. And when I
Well,
look
it's
at Buffy, I wonder if that's maybe not a purposeful theme, but what do you guys think about that?
I think the show does a really good job of pairing um, that notion of great power. With great power comes great responsibility,
Mhm,
and I think that you see a lot of the characters, especially the ones who started off as mortal, and like rooted in mortality and rooted in humanity, really struggle with that when they're given power. Like
mhm,
Willow, um, I really appreciate some of those lines between, or those dialogue between her and Giles in season 6 and season 7, or season 6 mostly, when he really kind of holds her to task about how she's um, still an amateur. As powerful as she is, she's really just
right?
lucky.
Yeah.
And Tara saying that she's using too much magic, and it kind of going into uh, this kind of parallel to a drug addict.
mm,
I also think too when you have Angel and his struggles as well as a
Oh,
supernatural being rooted in humanity.
as a
Um,
man.
the one thing I will say about Buffy is I think they did the character a disservice because instead of feeling her own darkness, it's often a reflection of the darkness of people around her.
Yeah.
mm,
So oftentimes, her reaction to Willow or Anya or Angel or Spike comes off as kind of holier than thou, and like
yeah.
Mhm,
I think it's something that they could have definitely maybe like sanded the hard edges on because
mhm,
even someone as powerful as her who came to this power at 16 years old or 15 years old rather,
mhm,
um, I think she would have had more of a like a struggle or more of acting out other
mhm.
than like season episodes 1 of season 2 and then like a handful of episodes in season 3 where she like wore like darker colors, no lower cut top,
Right,
and like stole something from a store. Like it's
right.
on the same level as like her stealing from Macy's in like at
Yeah,
15
right?
years old. So it's like
Yes.
I wish there had been a little bit darker in like season 6. Like yes, that spoke to more of depression rather than acting out because she was more powerful than everyone around her. I
Mhm.
would have preferred to see like a dark Buffy, like you saw Dark Willow, like
Right.
you saw Dark Anya,
Yeah.
all these people. So I think it would have been a really interesting story to pull her back from that edge.
I have
Yeah.
some thoughts on that, but my mind's kind of going all in like seven different tangents, so bear with me. But I feel like Josh, my God, I feel like Joss wouldn't allow himself to have Buffy be the bad, like a bad girl or have those bad
Mhm.
extremes compared to Spike and Angel and Willow or Anya, because she had to be the White Knight, and it seemed like a lot of her darkness was internal, whereas she was fighting so many external darkness and evil and aggression and anger from people she cares about, and also the people that she's sworn to protect, and also the people that are attacking her. It seemed like it was one of those sort of a hero's journey of, I'm not what matters here. The mission's what matters, similar to what Robin Wood's mother said. It's like, it doesn't matter what I feel. I have to do the right thing. I cannot be the bad guy here. And I feel like eventually over time that just becomes more internalized, which is why you saw when she came back and she said, I did the right thing. I saved the world. Why am I here? And she
Right.
started hurting herself in a way, with the depression, with acting out, with Spike, with all these other things,
Mm-hmm.
because she wouldn't allow herself to be bad. And
Right.
and Joss Whedon used a faith as a catalyst to sort of fill up all the, here's what Buffy could do, but she won't because she's the good girl. So let's make Faith the bad one. And then we'll put
Right.
her through the arc of finding atonement and salvation and righteousness. And then you have sort of another spectrum of, if they don't have those extremes, they're just a boring character. Like Xander never had the extreme of being amazingly good or amazingly bad, and he just
Mm-hmm.
came off as sort of like a lump that floated through the series and made terrible choices. But it
Right.
seemed normal when he made those terrible choices because he wasn't the good one fighting the good fight. He wasn't Buffy. Like when Buffy made the extreme choice of having sex with Spike, you're like, holy shit, that's strange. When Xander leaves Anya at the altar because he's afraid, because he's a coward, that seems like his
Mm-hmm.
character's arc. Like he's like, yeah, it makes sense. He would do that. So
Yeah.
I feel like I wish there could be sort of similar to what Stuart said. It would be interesting to see like a dark Buffy, but we have a dark Buffy. We have it in Faith, and I feel like in order for Joss to get his point across, he couldn't allow her to make those extremes the way he did his other
Yeah, I
characters.
get it. I get it. Like I'm just wondering, I'm thinking a little bit about Captain America because he's the
Mm-hmm.
one character that didn't really have. Sure, he grew a beard and told the government to piss off, but he
Mm-hmm.
really the dark side he did not traverse. You know what I mean? Not like Iron
No.
Man, not like the Hulk by his own, not by his own control. I wonder if it would have been. I wonder if it would have been better. I wonder if it would have been, after her mom dying was probably the time where that should have happened if it was going to happen.
Yeah, there should have been an
Probably just
outbreak,
a little bit more of a, yeah,
but then
or
but then you have
yeah,
Dawn.
I
But then
know.
you're like, no, we can't let her go bad. She can't go reckless. She can't feel her emotions or her pain. She has to take care of Dawn. That's what matters right now. Glory's on her way. Stop your feelings. Stop your hurt. None of this matters. You have to be the good guy. You have to be the hero. There's Dawn.
Oh, do you
Protect
think
her.
that's the bigger message?
I
You guys
feel
think
like,
that's the bigger message of Buffy? If we're talking on a feminist level, if we're talking on like an academic kind of diatribe, this notion of what women are expected to take, how they're supposed to internalize, how they're
yeah,
never supposed to allow themselves to feel and allow themselves, they're just supposed to get the job done.
it
Your job
wasn't
is the mission.
yeah, it wasn't until Willow literally has to go in her mind and say, snap out of it. We need you. Not even
Mhm.
allowing herself to feel those feelings. Because again, it's one of those like, everything around me is crumbling. I'm going catatonic. But instead of saying, we need to help her, it's like, get over yourself. We have a
Get
fight.
out of
We have
it.
a mission.
Come on,
And
let's go.
and
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
only time she's allowed to cry is when she wakes up and she just cries. And it's like, is that really what we should be teaching her? And is
Well,
this the
yeah.
message? Like, I don't know. I just,
I don't know. Sometimes I don't know if Buffy's teaching or reflecting. What do you think, Stu? You had a
I did. I think Stefan and I have talked about that episode before.
at length.
There is something about the resolution of that episode that I absolutely just hate. I
Yeah.
hate the fact that she is snapped out of it because Willow is like, yo,
Get
it's
over yourself.
enough.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, mop it up, sweep it up, build a bridge and get over it because we need you out here. And like, I understand why she did it because Dawn's not
Time.
dead and she can still save her. So like, this self fulfilling prophecy that that Dawn is over, Dawn is dead is something that will become true if she doesn't snap out of it,
Move.
and
Yeah.
Terrell will die. But it's one of those things that I wish there was a little bit more of a nuanced conversation in that episode about mental health and
Yeah.
like but again, like in the time period, it didn't
Yeah,
happen. And I think that for what it was at the time, it was a pretty profound episode.
yeah,
Looking back in 2022 eyes, we're like, ooh, wow. Because
Yeah.
at that time, I mean, mental health was pretty much looked at as like,
non-existent,
get over it.
Yeah.
Like, if you're
non-existent,
tired, if you're depressed, like take some. It's like
non.
it's around that time, like in
It's like,
the
hey,
mid
play Kelly
to late
Clarkson's Get
90s.
Us Stronger.
Yeah. But in the
It
mid
was
to late
non-existent.
90s, you had Prozac. It was like Prozac Nation. Everyone was on
Yeah.
Prozac. Everyone was on lithium because it was like the drug of choice. If you want to be happy, if you want to be less anxious, if you want to succeed in your life because you feel overwhelmed, take some Prozac.
Also, yeah, don't go to therapy. That means you're crazy. And therapy is a terrible thing.
Go
Why
to
would you go to
therapy
therapy?
for Prozac.
Only,
That's it.
yeah, only crazy people
I
go to therapy. Like,
Yeah, I
boo.
don't know. I'll tell you right now. I mean, in that era, so high school, university era for me, I don't know a single person, not one, in my family, out of my peer group, not a single one that went to therapy. And if they did go to therapy, not one who spoke about it.
I'll tell you right
Not
now,
one.
I'm on session 5 and it is life changing. After when we're done
Oh,
recording, I'll tell you something he said to me when we're done recording,
it's
and I'm
in,
like, oh, it's
well, look,
unreal.
it is
Everyone should
insane.
go to
And I
therapy.
tell this, people ask a lot of the times, like, what would the advice you give to your former self, or what would you advice you give to teens, and yada, yada, yada. And I always say therapy, and people are struck by it. They're like, why? And I'm like, well, it's not for the reasons you think. I honestly believe that therapy is a very structured way of figuring out who you are.
It's
Like,
wild.
who you are, not to fix whatever. Sure, we all need stuff to fix. It's not the point. It's really not the biggest point for me. If you can, at a younger age, if you have to deal with trauma, you deal with trauma. But if you can just figure out chunks of you, we never figure it all out, but chunks of you, and you take the time to figure that out. And I don't mean 6 months backpacking in Europe. I mean the time to figure that out, right? Life changing.
Hmm.
Life changing, because then all of the relationships and the job choices and the parents and the friends and the stress of it all hits differently. And the
Hmm.
only reason you can say that, or I can say that now, is I'm 47. And instead of doing that then, you have life experiences doing it for you.
Hmm.
And you wait until the trauma hits to then go to the therapist
Yeah.
and get back to the beginning. Speaking of the beginning, where you understand some of the roots of who you are. But if I would have known it, or if I was conscious of it,
Hmm.
it would have been so much more powerful. It's not to say you're going to avoid all the crappiness of life. Of course you're not. But it is to say you're going to face it with some sort of solidity of who you are. And I don't think we give kids any of it.
No.
None of it. Everybody talks about financial literacy as though this is going to cure the world, in high school. Screw it. What about a grade 10 course on mental health?
Hmm. When they
What?
really need it.
What about a grade and hire somebody with that specialty?
Yeah.
What about that? What about
Imagine.
I understand everybody needs to learn to balance checkbook, for the love of God, if I've heard that. But let's focus on the person, because if the person is that, think about how much stronger they will be when they don't know the answer and they can just reach out. They
Well,
can just
imagine
ask a question.
being 16 and like, because they're like, oh, you have a guidance counselor. Like, that's not, nobody goes to the
Uh,
guidance counselor for these kind of things. Like, imagine being 16 years old with all these changes, with social media, with teen life, just rumors and nonsense, and body changing and stress, and having someone for an hour a day just talk to you about it. It would be life changing. Like, literally, it's wild what comes out when someone just lets you talk for an hour, and the resolutions, revelations you receive just by speaking and just
mhm.
having that chance. It's wild. But then shows like this with like Normal Again, where it's like, no, you're crazy. Like, don't do that. This is 2002. What are you, nuts? You're crazy. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
also super important for people to realize that the thoughts in their heads and where those thoughts take them maybe isn't um, maybe isn't as normal as they would have thought if they had
Hmm.
kept it to themselves. Like,
Hmm.
not everybody's having these thoughts. And it's really, really great to have that space to talk to someone who can catch you in those patterns and be like, hey, let's stop here for a second and reflect on what we're saying. And I
Mhm.
think if we're kind of like reflecting onto Buffy, I think a lot of those conversations don't happen enough. A lot of external things happen to all of these characters
Mm.
that cause them to do what they do, but there's really not. And I'm guessing if you're using this universe as a universe that continues to be between episodes, they're having these conversations in those spaces that we don't see. Um, because I can't imagine any of them would be standing with all the death and destruction that they have encountered and seen and been a part of and witnessed. But I think you see these conversations happen in shows nowadays where it is a part of an episode or a part of a season where the character is so worn down, so traumatized, so hollowed out from all of the experiences they encounter that they have this conversation with a parent or a friend or something, and there really is more of that inserted into our media and what we consume. And I would be interested. I don't want this. I'm not saying please do this. So please, anyone listening to this who has this power, please do not take this as like me being like, you should go ahead and reboot the show. Don't do that. The show is
Hmm.
perfect as it is. It's perfect for the moment in time that it came out for.
Yeah.
And it is something that doesn't need to be touched, rebooted, redone. But it would be interesting if it was rebooted, if those conversations would be something that were threaded through the show. So I would
Well,
love
Yeah.
to
especially
see those conversations happen.
well, especially since if you think about it, at the end of season 7, Buffy is 22 years old.
Yeah.
Imagine at 22 having the weight of the world like the show puts on her, on any of those characters at 22. At 37, I'm only now going to therapy. How the hell? I can't imagine what I would have done at 22. You know what I mean?
I
Like
think
it's
also
wild.
I think also that's kind of the underpinning of the show, right? Is this notion of the egocentrism of teenagers, and not in a bad way, just in a way where you're the center of the world and what you're going through and all of your trauma and your trials and your heartbreak and your fights and the weight that you feel, even though it's not significant weight, because we look back and it's not significant, but I assure you, sitting in a room with a 16-year-old who's having quite a visionary panic attack because if they don't get 90 on the next exam, they don't get into McGill. If they don't get into McGill, then their world is they're going to die alone and poor. It's not rational necessarily, but from where they stand, it is because it's the only weight they've ever carried. And having said that, there are a lot of very young kids who carry way more, well, that I ever did, and way more than a lot of people did. And I think the brilliance of the show is the sort of metaphoric comparison, these all these external demons, all this external fighting, all this that's just like you said, is very much internal. The weight of the world, I'm the center, I have to do this. If I don't do this, everything falls apart.
Well, and
You know?
I'll mention something. I won't get too deep into it because it's a very personal conversation. But I was I was in a session and my therapist was talking, and he triggered a memory in my head, but it was about faith. And the memory is of Faith saying, "You can't take me, no one can take me." And you know how when you're thinking of a certain scene in a movie or a show,
Mhm.
that's sort of how it reflects how you're feeling in that moment. And
Yeah.
he's like, "Explain that to me." And I went down
Right.
this wild rabbit hole where I realized that I was using scenes from Buffy, very specific scenes, to sort of track a trauma in my life, and I was using Faith as the catalyst to explain myself and to hide behind. And then
Mhm.
it sort of the conclusion was that she wanted she wanted just to be done and over, and she was looking for
Mm.
excuses, but because she didn't want to go through the trauma of dealing with her consequences. And then rather than fighting alone, you see her standing up in Chosen with Buffy, with the Slayers, with that music. She's right behind her. She's made it and she's won. And there was such a getting chills thinking about it, but I didn't realize how much of Buffy I was using as
Mm.
a way to kind of figure out my own trauma until I went and had those conversations. To the point where I actually found it yesterday. I found the signature where Elijah Dushku wrote, "You're a fucking warrior, Faith." I found the picture yesterday, and I'm like, I got to get that tattooed at some point,
Yeah.
one of these days. But yeah, it's just seriously, if anything, if you take anything from this series, Buffy's amazing. Go to therapy.
Obviously means you go to therapy. Stu, what were you gonna say?
No, I wasn't going to say. I was just
Oh, sorry.
listening to Stefan. Yeah.
I thought you had. What's interesting, and this is just more of a general reference, I think, on pop culture, and a general reference on the things in which, when we are going through those times, and a lot of that is teenagers to young adulthood, right? When we go through those times, we are bound to the things that we connect to then, and the things we connect to then have this resonance, have this, the touch, the smell, the music, like just exactly the same reason you can put a song on that
Hmm.
you haven't heard and you can be there wherever there was. Grade 8 dance, 1989, this is what happened, this is how I felt in my gut, I can feel that. And for people to disclude pop culture as like incredibly vital and incredibly important, they're just excluding the historical application, and it can, of a person's story, right, of a
Hmm.
person's history, of a person's biography. I think nothing will tap into that clearer, which is why, as adults, full grown adults, why do you think Comic-Con is packed, filled with people paying hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of dollars to do what? Reclaim a feeling they had with a show at that time. It has nothing to do with that show. It
Hmm.
has to do with that show was on at a certain place in a certain time and connected to a certain emotion.
Hmm.
But I want that back.
Yeah.
So what do? We listen to the music. We go back. Stranger Things. We're doing a haunted house at my school based on Stranger Things, and the kids love it because it's their jam, right? It's their age group.
Hmm.
But the reason why it became what it is because every adult sat down with their kids from the 1980s and went, "Oh, there's a cassette player. Oh,
Yeah.
look at that car. My dad had that car.
Hmm.
Oh my God, look at that carpet. In my house, that was the car." And we don't even consciously say that. None of that is conscious. Maybe the cassette player. It's all subliminal. All
Hmm.
of it's subliminal, and it ties us back, and sometimes to good, and just like Stefan was saying, sometimes to not so good.
Hmm.
But both, whether it's amazing or whether it's horrific, that is the imprint. Small things don't imprint, big things imprint, right? For good or for bad. And then the I think the way to get in and the way they stay is through the things we connect to, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's super important.
I
Stu?
think that's I think that's why so
Oh,
many
sorry,
people are.
Stephanie?
That's okay. I think that's why so many people are connected to Disney films from the '90s and '80s, and I feel,
100%.
and cartoons. Like my obsession with Sailor Moon is 100% that, and same with Buffy. Like some things just resonate longer and stronger, because of where you were and how you felt, and having the chance to meet the people behind those characters, even for a moment, the voice actor of your favorite anime,
Mm,
or the villain of this TV show you loved, like feeling that connection with them because they were there with them in that moment. There's nothing like
mm-hmm,
it. There's nothing like it.
mm-hmm. Stu, what do you think?
I agree. I honestly think too that, especially for the time period that came out, and kind of the age of feminism this show was written in, I honestly believe that it's become a comfort show, and something that a lot of people use to um, as a form of escapism from
Mm-hmm,
kind of the harsh reality of everyday life, and
Hmm.
allows them to truly kind of work through their own emotions and own traumas through the characters on the show. There's always someone who's going to relate to a character more than another.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that that's something that a lot of people discount as not a good form of therapy. But I do think that I do think that escapism within reason
Hmm.
is is a healthy way of taking a step back from the harshness of your life and kind of protecting you until a time that you can step back into it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Everyone needs a brief reprieve, and I think these shows, I think Buffy's a lot of, for millennials
Hmm.
and younger Gen X's, but I think you can see a lot of different television shows and genres and fandoms that people still to this day are as passionate about as the day when it aired. And I think
Hmm.
that's something that speaks to the lasting power of a show like this and the kind of humanity and impact these characters had on people's lives.
Hmm.
So I
Well,
think that while there are issues, looking back on it, where you can hope for more or wish that things were different, I think the show as it stands and as passionate as the fans are even now and how it continues to
It's
attract new
insane,
viewers
right? Yeah.
is a true testament to um, the work of these writers, directors, actors.
I have a question. So, like, shows like Star Trek in the 70s and 80s and Buffy in the 90s, there are certain shows that stand the test of time because they have such a devoted fan base. When it comes to like the new generation, what TV show do you think in 20 years is going
So
to be the
funny, Kevin.
show?
That's so funny. I wanted to end all of this by asking, well, two things. That's a great question. So we can do that. And then I
Mhm.
also want to go to, I want you guys to think about the top three shows, not Buffy,
Okay.
the top three shows you would say are a must watch. But let's take a guess at today. Right now, it has to be in current production right now. What do you think? Oh, this is going to be hard for me. What do you think right now is going to be, the Comic-Con in 20 years where people will line up around the block and pay thousands of dollars to stand beside? What do you it has to be in production right now.
So it couldn't have just ended?
It ended like last year?
Okay. Um
Like right like current. I this
I think you can like there's short like the problem is that we tend to push toward miniseries or like limited series these days. Um,
mhm.
I
That's
think you're going to
okay.
find a younger generation really getting behind Lock and Key, and you can kind of have that. You can see it in the lovers of the comic books and the lovers of the Netflix
Mm,
series, and kind of the ones that are caught between. I
okay.
think you can see it in The Handmaid's Tale, which is a little bit more dystopian.
Yes.
Mhm.
I
I could
think you
see
can
that.
also, yeah, you can see it in like, I mean,
I could see The Handmaid's Tale.
you
Only
can also see
unfortunately
it in
The
a lot of these
Handmaid's
like
Tale is so
Riverdale
deeply.
fans.
You think? Oh
Ugh.
god, I
Yeah,
hope.
God, I hope not.
I can see The Handmaid's Tale, but for a different reason. I mean, The Handmaid's Tale has this very weird uh and coincidence, horrific coincidence of producing and existing at the same
Same
time
time.
as the political system started reflecting it, which is just
Yeah. Weird.
insane, predictive. The book was written in like 84.
Mhm.
So to all of a sudden this is when we're going to make it and all of it, it's, I guess it's not all of a sudden, but you're right that I
Mhm.
could see that being powerful. What else, Steph? Do you think anything? I'm
Uh,
trying to think of one. I
I
mean, that's a
mean,
good one.
I hope and I think Stranger Things will have that staying power for sure, especially since they were all so young when it started. Um,
Okay.
I would hope this. I just finished Sandman, and I thought it was so interesting, and I really hope that that does. But again, it's just one of those kind of new shows.
Right.
Um, Supernatural ended recently, but yeah, I don't know.
Well,
those
Supernatural is going to be in
those
your top. You can't. You gotta.
but
That's one of your shows.
Well, not
those
mine, but yeah,
Julia is like the fandom. Um,
they're wild.
yeah, they're wild. Like Julia's
Supernatural.
part of that fandom, and I think
Yeah,
one of our rebel commentators um,
they're
is
intense.
they're wild, and I hear some of the stories and some of the discourse online, and kind of the Death Steal fan fiction that goes out there, and I'm absolutely floored by the lasting power. But also that show is still sort of on. They're producing the Winchesters now, which is a prequel series.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it's still going on. Like
That's
it's
why.
still happening.
What about the
Yeah.
Walking Dead?
That fandom is crazy.
They're insane. But like, so is
Like,
Game of Thrones. But like, look, no
yeah,
one is saying a word about Game of Thrones until the news thing came out, and it's not even comparable to what Game of Thrones was at the time. Like the second
Yeah,
Game of Thrones ended, it's like it never happened. And now this new one is just like, it came out at the exact same time as Sandman and Ring of Power, and it is not having the impact that anyone thought it would because it's coming out at the same two
guys,
other huge
I'm gonna
powerhouses.
I'm gonna say it because it's still in production and because I love it.
Hmm.
Grey's Anatomy.
Oh
oh my
god.
god, yes, I'm part of that
Grey's
fandom.
Anatomy.
Oh my god.
Even though I have to pump the brakes in some of these seasons, but uh,
I'm
can you
sorry,
imagine in 10 years you're gonna have Meredith Grey? Who's not lining up for Meredith Grey?
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that's true.
argue at one point because I think this is something that um we all say, but like for a show to be on for 19 years
I mean,
and like I will say that around season 12 I was getting
well,
very bored of the show, but then they ended up reinventing themselves once again, and I
mhm,
think that you saw them reinvent themselves again this year. And the fact that Ellen Pompeo is only in 8 episodes of a 22 episode season
right,
Really?
because she's doing a limited TV series on
right,
Hulu. I'm really interested to see if this is a test to see if the fandom can exist outside of Meredith Grey.
Right.
right.
Um, I think this is her testing to see like if they have to end the show or she can just leave the show.
Hmm.
Because Shonda Rhimes has always said the show will end when Meredith leaves, but it is a cash cow. It is a major
Yeah.
Yeah.
force on ABC. So, do I think that it should perhaps end? I think that there should be an exit strategy if they want to do um,
Yeah.
if they want to do a spin-off like they do for Station 19 and for Private Practice. 100% do it. But I agree with you. I think that fandom, that encapsulating fandom of Private Practice, Station 19, um, I think Grey's Anatomy, I think will live on for quite a bit. In the
In my
pandemic,
head,
people
guys,
were crazy for it.
What about Law and
listen.
Order?
I just had. I'm gonna say this right now, and so in like 5 to 10 years, when Shonda Rhimes wants to negotiate all this, and all of those actresses are a few years older, can you imagine who would pay? What kind of dollar amount would you pay for like visiting? Could you imagine a plane if like like a physical set of a plane that has crashed, and you get to meet them all? What would you pay for that?
That would be pretty intense,
What
yeah.
would you pay? What
If I could like go to Storybrooke and have like Snow White and Charming
what would
standing there and
you
be like,
pay?
take my firstborn, I will have a child just to give him to you.
Ah, in 10 years.
Yeah.
All right. I need your 3 shows. And I'm going to go last cuz I think I can pivot on this one cuz I have some solid random choices. Outside of Buffy, and obviously we can't say anything that's currently on. No. Like these
Okay.
are 3 shows that are said and done. What
Okay.
are your 3 shows you're like go watch it immediately, buy the DVDs even if you don't buy them? What are your 3 shows? Who wants to go first?
You
Stuart
go
has to go
first.
first. Oh yeah.
Oh, he's ready.
We might have duplicates.
I think go out and watch Damages. Damages is one of my favorite shows.
Glenn Close, nice.
Rose Byrne, one of my
Great show.
favorite shows. So fucking good. I would say Grey's Anatomy. I like listen. I'm a Grey's fan. I'm not going to apologize for it. I've apologized my entire life.
No,
Like
Paula, we
this
just
is
said
the
it's still on.
literally. This show is the last show in that would air. It was airing when I was in high school. I started watching the show when I
20
was in
years
high school.
old,
It's
yeah.
crazy. Or just after I graduated high school. But and I would say like Buffy, I'm not going to mention it because we're doing this episode, this podcast, and I think everyone knows I love this fandom.
Sure.
The
This is
Thank
favorite
you.
outside of
show,
Buffy.
Veronica Mars,
Oh, you stole one of mine. All right, Stefan, what do you got?
except for the Hulu revival. I haven't
No,
forgiven it yet.
don't do it.
Okay.
She should have gone to the FBI. What a waste. Okay, that should be season 4. Go ahead, Steph.
Okay. I'm gonna completely stay out of the Whedonverse, so I'm not gonna include like Dollhouse or Serenity or anything like that. Will and Grace. Everyone needs to
Oh,
watch Will and
nice.
Grace. I
Nice.
still quote that show to this day. It's it's the funniest show ever made. Golden Girls, because again,
Nice. No, that's a solid call.
yeah, like those two
Yeah.
shows are my life, and
Yeah.
it's a tie between either Once Upon a Time or Vampire Diaries. So I
I
think
can't believe you didn't lead the amount you talk about Once Upon a Time. How did you not?
because
How did you not lead with that?
Will and Grace is literally my life, but Once Upon a Time is probably my favorite. Like what again, a show that gave me such like emotions, like Buffy. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Once Upon a Time. Yeah.
Listen, I'm going to give everybody a retro show. Because you went back to Golden Girls, I think we should all have a retro. I'm going to go. These are my. Okay, I'll come to your retro show. Hold on. I already got my retro in my head and it's controversial. But here we go. Here are my three: House,
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica,
Yeah.
the new one.
Mm-hmm.
Just insane, just amazing. And I'm going to go with the Gilmore Girls.
Nice. I could never get into it. I tried. I really tried.
I love the Gilmore Girls.
My retro, Stu, what's your retro?
Murder,
Let's
She
say
Wrote.
three. What?
Murder, She Wrote.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
loved Murder, She Wrote.
Murder, She Wrote.
Nice.
Can I just say out loud, and I want to say this, I already told Stefan this, like, I have a bone to pick with Angela Lansbury, even though, like, God rest her soul, I love her to death. But, like, literally the reason I became a writer was because of Jessica Fletcher. I used to watch that show with my grandmother. I literally assumed that writing a book required sitting at your kitchen table and writing an entire book in a week.
It does.
Stefan was a prolific writer. What a lie.
That's how I do it, Stu, and you've seen how good that turns.
What a lie I learned when I became a writer and realized that writing anything required having an emotional breakdown and being taken to the brink of insanity and have everything like written by rum. Like,
there we go. I like
that's
it.
it.
Well, if
Never
Golden
once
Girls,
crack a drink.
if Golden Girls is my retro, then
yeah.
I'm gonna say Vampire Diaries is my third.
Then you got Vampire Diaries. I'm gonna go retro. I'm gonna go Roseanne.
Oh, fun! That was
I
a
gotta
fun
go
show.
Roseanne until the last
Goodman.
season. Nobody wants that.
Did you watch
but
The Connors?
I gotta go Roseanne for the fact that it was A, so funny, but B, so reflective of a culture and a time and a group of people that nobody ever spoke about. I'm going to give you an honorable mention because I have one more in my head. Stu, honorable mention.
Honorable mention. West Wing.
Nice. Steph?
I used to watch it with my dad.
It's amazing.
Frasier.
Nice. I'm going to go United States of Tara.
Oh,
I never saw it.
I love that one.
Awesome.
I never saw it. I should have.
And I have one more. It's like I have too much of a list. I do have one more I have to mention while we're all sitting here. It has to be Saving Grace.
I heard
Saving
Grace.
Yeah.
You've never seen it? Holly Hunter in that show. And again, United States of Tara only went 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Saving Grace only went 3 seasons. Veronica Mars 3 seasons. In my opinion, these are shows that were ahead of the curve. Mm-hmm. Had they come out 5 or 6 years late, can you imagine United States of Tara now? Had they come out 5 or 6 years later, they would have had a run. Mm-hmm. But people, I don't think, got the genius and the reflection of it. It was just like it was a little too far ahead. Do you have one more, Steph?
My attention span only goes so far, so I just want something funny and walk away. So the nanny was amazing.
Fran Drescher.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Shout out to Fran.
What's your last, you get the last say, Stu. This is it right here. As he sits pensively staring.
I think I really enjoyed ER. I just finished it again.
You've just been watching it again.
Yeah.
I like it.
I really did. And I think it handled a lot of really good topics. And
I think it did too.
Oh, no. Wait. It's a tie.
Oh.
ER, Law & Order. Like original Law & Order, 1990.
Law & Order was amazing. Agreed.
2000. Everyone knows my love of that show.
They could have a Law & Order Comic-Con just a con for Law & Order.
Look,
like,
you could do Comic-Cons for each one of these shows and do great. There's no
I will follow Chris Maloney into the ocean. Like, if he gave me a reason, I would just use his ass as an inflatable device.
So lovely. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for going on this epic, and I do mean epic, let's say quest of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I would love for you guys to say one last time, where can everybody find you after this 14 episode arc? Stefan.
Sure. You can find me at SJ Maroney on Instagram. And to follow me and our Rebel crew, it's Rebel Without a Closet at RWACPOD. We review queer and queer adjacent media. Joanna's on there all the time. She's phenomenal. We just did our Best Friend's Exorcism, and it was so fun. That's where you can find me.
Fantastic. Stu, what about you?
You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Janikon, JNIKON_. And go and like my latest picture of Jo in her radiance.
Oh my God.
Such a good picture. Gorgeous.
Listen,
radiant.
People don't
Pants
know
are
this.
stunning.
I'm telling you guys right now. I number one, Stu is an amazing writer. Number two, how you can take, guys, it's like he takes pictures. What's that famous lady that takes pictures of everybody? You know, everybody's like, if you're famous, you go get her picture taken.
Oh, Annie Leibovitz.
Thank you much. He is Annie Leibovitz with the,
oh my God.
iPhone.
Stop,
I'm telling you right
nice.
now. I'm telling you right now, go follow him on Instagram. Thank you guys so much. And thank all of my listeners and viewers for spending the last 14 episodes with us reviewing Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Next week, we'll jump into something new, political, censorship, getting canceled, a little economics, who the heck knows. But we will see you next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat station. Dismissed.